Ken, let's just talk about this now, because we're watching Jess. She's playing a fish. This is the moment all salmon anglers dream of. But this is the point at which we have to take real care, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really. And Jess and I now have sorted out exactly where we're going to land this fish. Just below us here on the left-hand side, there's a lovely even patch of ground. We're not too bad here. It's small cobble type gravel. So there's plenty of options in terms of landing the fish. But really, the fish has played hard, but Jess has put quite a lot of pressure on it. So the fish is in now quite quickly.
Now, from an angler's perspective, what's the important part of this process?
Well, really, the important part is, and Jess has got over the important part really, in the sense that the excitement of getting the fish, a massive long run, and then this great big jump at the very end of the run. So she's settled into it now and putting just some nice even pressure on the fish and bringing the fresh fish in without any nonsense. So it's all going very well at the moment.
What's the balance you have to strike between playing the fish and getting it in quickly for the purpose of making sure the fish goes back okay at the end?
Almost impossible to describe this. It's all in the feel of it. But once the fish, as he's doing now, starts to show his tail and starts to just hold station in the current, you can actually then afford to put quite a bit of pressure on him and get him into the net quite quickly. But as I say, you can't second guess this, so it's up to the angler to judge when he or she feels that the fish is ready to be actually brought to the net.
So it's efficient but not rushing. You just have to make sure that you read the situation very carefully and get it in as quickly and efficiently as you can. Is that right?
That's it. And we're very lucky here. I mean, just above where I was fishing, there's huge, very big, sharp rocks. It's actually quite nice here. So it's an ideal place for landing the fish.
I've just heard Terry say to Jess that this is a powerful fish. So my feeling is that we've got a big double. The moment of truth. So Ken, talk us through this bit. This is so important too.
Yeah, it is really. And this is the time now where we can actually see the size of the fish. Are really, really substantial fish. And Terry's now just getting ready. He's going to wait until the fish actually comes over the net itself, and then he's just going to lift into it. And a perfect bit of netting. There's a fine fish, really, really fine fish. So somewhere in the region of 14, 15 pounds.
So Ken, there's our magnificent riverine salmon.
Fabulous fish, isn't he? Yeah, really a beautiful big male salmon. Lovely big guy. So you can see that he's actually in the net. He's quite comfortable in the net there. You know, he's recovering very well in the net. And he's actually beginning to swim with the net. So we have him facing upstream, okay? And he's nicely into the current. The water's nice and cool. And he's showing no great signs of stress at all, okay? So what we'll do then is just turn him over then, just have a little look, see where the fly is. And you can see the fly is just there, just on the side of his jaw. So I have a little forceps here. And it'll only take just one quick movement and the fly will be, I've just cut in his tongue. That's why he fought so hard. That's all it was. Just let him slip him back into the net, okay? And just let him recover then.
There's no rush here at all.
Absolutely no rush whatsoever. So that fish is actually in very, very good order now. So for a big fish like that, the most important thing is not to go lifting the fish out of the water, because all of the internal organs are in the fish. So the fish is actually suspended in the water. And particularly a female, if you were to lift that fish out of the water, all of the weight then drags out of all of the innards of the fish, and it could do quite serious damage. So try to keep the fish in the water. If you wanted to take a photograph, there's a beautiful photograph, and there's no stress on the fish whatsoever, just by holding the fish just barely out of the water like that.
I mean, how many times have we seen anglers holding salmon like this up, 3 feet off the ground?
Oh yeah.
Above gravel, for instance.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that really, I mean, that's the lung of the fish inside the gill cover there. And the one thing you could not afford to do was what Terry didn't do, which was to, net the fish and then drag the fish up the bank, because any sort of grit or whatever that goes in there can do all sorts of serious damage. That is a really powerful fish. I can feel that fish now moving in my hand, the great big tail moving very, very, very strongly. So it's actually ready to go. So support the fish like that, and then the fish itself then can just swim off himself when he's ready, okay? See the tail starting to move?
You feel that muscle tension coming back
absolutely.
into the fish, don't you? And it's given a fabulous account of itself. It fought really hard for probably 10-15 minutes. And there it goes. So Ken, just reflecting on the release of that fantastic 17-pound fish, do you think on reflection there's anything we could have done better? Is there any way we could have made that a smoother operation?
I don't really think so, Andy. I think the fish was well handled, even if I say it myself. I think the fish was very strong when we released it. It took off upstream and away it went. But to some extent, I think maybe we were privileged, because that fish was a big male. It was a male that had been in freshwater for quite some time. It had adapted fully to freshwater. My concern really would be, I think, in terms of fish that are either early or late. And the early fish in particular are bright silver. So they're coming in from the tide, and they're in exactly the same situation physiologically as the smolts going back out. They may be 20 times bigger, but they're still going through a major trauma. What it doesn't need is a huge amount of stress. And the other end then of the journey, particularly the females this time of the year, October, females can be bloated with eggs, really, really bloated with eggs. So there's a huge amount of pressure inside that body cavity. Do not, under any circumstances, lift that fish out of the water, and be very gentle in terms of handling the area where the eggs are all gathered and where they're distending the body. And very, very gently release those females. So I think if you think of it in terms of either end of the journey, so at the very beginning of the adult journey, the very end of the journey, then you have to be super careful. In the middle, I think at the end of the day, these are very strong, powerful fish, and all of the indications are they do really well.
The research you've done over the decades that you've been working in this industry, give us a picture of whether this actually works, the science behind what we're talking about today, because, you know, I think people are very sceptical. They think, well, so what, I'm going to put this fish back, it probably won't live. But tell us the science.
Well, first of all, in terms of the fish living or not, all of the indications are that if fish are properly handled, and if the terminal tackle is correct and the fish are landed fairly quickly and people aren't fishing in super hot temperatures, the fish actually do very well. Surprisingly high numbers, 97, 98% of those fish are absolutely and completely fine. So that's fine. The caveat obviously is the early fish and the late fish, but outside of that the fish are fine. But in terms then of the research, really what the research is indicating, and certainly some of the work that was originally funded by the Atlantic Salmon Trust, has shown very, very clearly that in terms of the contribution that the anglers are making to the actual stock of fish in the river, catch and release is actually making a very serious contribution. And what I say to anglers, and they often ask me that question, they say, look, is it really worth all this trouble? Is this a load of nonsense really? You know, are we getting too fussy here? What I say to them is, look, would you like to give a gift to your favourite river? And they say, yeah, like, do you mean the local trust? And I say, no, I'd like you to give a gift of eggs to the river. Because when they have a female salmon from a particular river in their hands, there is literally no man or woman alive that can replicate what's inside that salmon. And just keep that in your mind, and you make a choice. And I'm not an addict, you know. I'm happy enough to, if there's a surplus of salmon, to bring home my few salmon and to eat them. So it is a choice. But each time you have to think of that. You have to think of the fact that they are absolutely unique eggs that are inside that fish. If you have a 5-pound fish, 3,500 eggs. If you have a 10-pound fish, 6,500 or 7,000 eggs. So you can actually give a contribution of 7,000 wild eggs for each 10-pound salmon that you put back. And I think that really, most people would actually relate to that and would be happy to do that. It's in their own interest to do it.
If you've got the right tackle, a strong rod, strong line and a reel with a decent drag, you can land a fish more quickly. The more fight it has left, the better chance it has of going back into the river safe and well. Get the fish into calmer water, where you can control the unhooking procedure. The simple fact with a barbless hook is that it comes out much more easily. There's less damage to the fish and less stress on the angler. Always have a set of long-nose forceps to hand for coping with deep-hooked fish. But if you can't reach the hook, it's safer for the fish to simply cut the line as close to the eye of the hook as you can. The fish will eject the hook quickly once it's returned to the water, if it's barbless. If you want a trophy picture, don't rush. Minimise the stress on the fish by keeping it in the water if possible. It can rest and recover safely in your landing net for several minutes. Lifting it by the tail or the gill plate will potentially cause serious damage to the fish. Use a weigh net or a measure just like Ken's, which gives you weight according to length. Above all, try to control your emotions and think your way through what you're doing. Catching salmon will certainly make your heart pound. This is the bit that really matters. Putting a salmon back into a river safely means it will continue its journey to spawn. The key message here is to take your time. If the fish is resting in the net, it's stress-free and recovering from the fight. Wait until it tells you it's ready to go back. Hold the fish gently but firmly, with 2 hands to ensure control, its head facing upstream. Then just wait for the salmon to make up its own mind. You'll feel the muscle tension return to the fish when it's ready, then off it goes. Remember also, a salmon may have exhausted itself by swimming thousands of miles at sea before returning to fresh water. So when they get here, let's look after them and enjoy the privilege of spending time with the undisputed kings of the river.